Thanks for being here. As lawmakers get back to work, I'd like to ask you, with a war underway in Europe, what will be the congressional response? President Biden is asking for more than $6 billion in aid for Ukraine, as well as for refugees, many of whom are already crossing the border into countries like Poland. Will you take up that bill?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think we will, and I think we'll give the president everything he's asking for. He is on top of this. He's demonstrated for the last several weeks that he's in his wheelhouse, and we're going to respond, I think, in a very positive way. The American people are absolutely concerned about what's going on. They know that this could very well lead to a third world war. Mm-hmm. And they see that the whole world is rising up against Putin, and that's as it should be. And we are concerned in this Congress about those among us who seem to have some sensitivity towards Mr. Putin. That is very concerning to the people I've talked to here on the Hill.
Is it too late for Congress to consider sanctions legislation, Congressman? Is there anything left that you could do that the Treasury has not?
Well, I doubt that we are going to get out in front of Treasury or in front of the administration. I think that what we need to do is to reinforce the requests coming from the president, who I think is working in concert with Treasury as they interact with countries around the world. Mm-hmm. We ought not get out in front of that. Let this president have the room he needs to keep our allies with us and to respond to what's going on with the European Union and other entities around the world.
Well, as a companion to that, Congressman, there's obviously a lot of different ways to get to this, and I wonder what your thoughts are on a use of force authorization. This has been talked about over the past week. Speaker Pelosi indicated that this might be in the works. I know a bipartisan group of members has sent a letter to leadership on this, suggesting that it would be codified in legislation that the U.S. will not commit ground troops to Ukraine. Does that need to happen?
I don't know that it needs to happen. Once again, the president has made it very clear that that's not in his agenda.
Yeah.
And so I think that those of us sitting here in the Congress will do well to maintain the relationship with the president. Mm-hmm. He, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, they're on the front lines with this. And let's stay unified as a country and not get out in front of the administration on this.
Congressman Clyburn, it was 2 years ago last Friday, and I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that then candidate Joe Biden announced his intention in the South Carolina debate to nominate a black woman for the first time to the Supreme Court. That has happened, of course, and I know he did not pick your preferred Judge Michelle Childs. But I wonder, your personal feelings aside, if you have faith in Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes, I do. And I thank you very much for framing it that way. Yes, we all have personal choices. We all have regional biases. I'm a South Carolinian through and through. And I was proposing a South Carolinian who I thought would be an outstanding jurist. And that doesn't take anything away from the other 2 dozen or so who were being considered. Mm-hmm. And most people thought it had come down to 3 people. And my choice was among the 3, but it can only be one. And I think this judge has demonstrated that she is the kind of person that can be a success on the Supreme Court, would add some diversity that I've been talking about for some time now to the court. She was a public defender. She is African-American. Mm-hmm. She's had some experiences that I think the other justices on the Supreme Court could benefit from.
I wonder if, obviously, an historic announcement, I wonder if you were disappointed when you heard who the president was going to pick, Congressman.
Well, I would like to, I've been asking people, how many people knew Michelle Childs 2 months ago? And so what we did was to say to the American people, here is a young lady sitting here in South Carolina who has kind of background, kind of experiences that ought to bring her into considerations. I was one of a lot of people who were putting forth names. So I think it would be a dereliction of duty on my part not to advance the name of someone that I thought should be considered while all others were advancing their names. I joined in the fray. We came up short, but I think we did a good service to the judiciary by putting forth her name.
There have been some concerns about not choosing the judge from South Carolina, Congressman, because that means you don't get a vote from Senator Lindsey Graham. And based on his statement last week, we do not expect that he will vote to approve Ketanji Brown Jackson in the confirmation hearing. Would that have been an easier path to confirmation if the judge had come from South Carolina?
Oh, I don't know. It may be easier for Lindsey Graham, but there are other people there who are have their considerations. We all have our personal choices. That's something to be expected. But we all are part of this great country, this great experiment that we call democracy, and this is a part of it. And you can't always win. But if you don't get in the game, you will never win.
Yeah.
And so we got in the game, didn't win this time, but we're going to stay in the game.
State of the Union tomorrow night, Congressman. I don't suspect we'll hear Build Back Better. What do you want to hear from Joe Biden tomorrow night?
I want to hear those parts of Build Back Better that we can agree on. And he's going to be talking about that. And I've been talking to the senators. And I know that there are many parts of Build Back Better that we can go forward with. And we should do that. We ought to do what is necessary to keep our children that we brought out of poverty. We ought to do what we can to expand health care to as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah.
All these things are in Build Back Better. And I think that we should look at those things, look at what we can do about drug prices, bringing those down, doing what we can about the climate crisis. And let me tell you, the climate crisis, this month of February is always the coldest month in South Carolina. Last week was one of the hottest weeks in South Carolina we ever had. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we have got to do something to address climate change.
Despite everything we're talking about here, though, Congressman, the president is dealing with persistently low approval ratings. We saw another low in an ABC poll over the weekend. It's in part due to dissatisfaction among his base, including black voters. As an important advisor to this president, I wonder if you are or how you're advising him to repair that relationship.
Well, I don't think that the relationship has been broken. I think that people have expressed some disappointment. One thing he did last Friday was to address some of that disappointment. And I think that we have got to do a better job of telling people what this president has done. And when you look at this, I'm amazed at the number of people who don't realize that this president has put 8 African-American women on the courts of appeal, on the circuit courts of appeal. That's that adds up to what all the other presidents have done put together, and people don't know it. Mm-hmm. He's had more appointments to the judiciary than any president in his first year, and people don't know it. I just think that we're doing a poor job of telling people what this president has done. The glass may not be full, but let's talk about it being half full rather than being half empty.
Congressman, we're out of time. Do you plan to wear a mask tomorrow night at the State of the Union?
Yes. I wear one whenever I feel comfortable wearing it and whenever the policies dictate it.